Boom, how's it going, everybody? It's your boy Deshaun, otherwise known as the Minty Crustacean, but you guys could just call me Zabu. Welcome back to the podcast and the channel. Been a minute since I've seen you guys. I actually had recorded this podcast a couple days ago, and then right before I was about to upload it, I was like, oh yeah, I didn't watch it back to make sure it exported well, and I looked at it, and the file was crap. It was like weird. I don't know what was going on. There was like all kinds of crap, but basically it wasn't working out too well, so I had to, I did something I call giving my PC a day off, or like I unplug it for a full day and then I plug it back in to record again and whatnot. And then my PC seems to appreciate that because, you know, it needs a little break too. So, yeah. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. We got some interesting and some very serious and some very fun topics today, so I think today's going to be a great podcast. So if you're new here, just go ahead and relax, sit down, enjoy yourself, and if you've been here before, I appreciate you guys rocking with me here once again. So yeah, and also to anybody watching, if you would like to only hear me talk about a specific topic or a specific part of the podcast, go ahead down below in the description box. There is show notes for the timestamps of when I'm talking about certain things, because we got a lot to go through. So let's go ahead and go through it today. Let's go ahead and start up with the first topic I wanted to speak on, and that was me wanting to give this new rap group that I found, or I guess I should say the Apple Music put me onto, Contra. Now I'll put a picture of their album that they just dropped, I think last year or whatever, up right now. Contra is crazy. These dudes are so freaking good, and I just wanted to get on here and give them their praise for a little bit because holy freaking crap. So when I was listening to Apple Music, as you guys know, if you've watched the podcast before, I listen to a lot of albums just in general. I don't like go around finding singles, or I don't just kind of like listen to the radio. I look up artists that I like or artists that people are talking about and listen to their full discography, meaning all of their albums front to back, seeing like how good they are. And I was listening to, I want to say, maybe Kendrick or something. So I was listening to somebody, and I had finished the album, but on my Apple Music, you know, I have it set to where after I finish something, it'll just find me another random song, either one I have or maybe put me onto something new. And it just so happened to play some song off of the Apartment 505 album from Contra, and I was like, okay, let me go ahead and see what the heck these dudes are about. And because I was really digging the song, so it was so good that I like had to look at my phone and go to artists and be like, oh, they only have like one full album. Oh, okay, I'll check it out. It is so freaking good. My girlfriend gave it an 8.5 out of 10. I would probably give it probably the same thing. I'd also probably give it an 8.5 because it's just a really good listen. It's a group of 4 dudes. I'm still like learning about them and whatnot, but from what I know, it is comprised of this guy named Riolos, I believe. He's like this Hispanic, black rapper dude who has crazy bars. Like, his bars are crazy and whatnot. And his voice and the way he delivers his lines is really good. But the thing is he throws in some Spanish-speaking lines, like, for a couple of bars and whatnot. He'll, like, just speak Spanish, which, obviously, I don't know what the heck he's saying, but it sounds fire anyway. And it's mixed in well with the rest of the lyrics and everything, so if you are, you know, somebody who does that, you're really going to like him. Then there's also 2 twins. I believe it's Taj and Raz or something like that. It's spelled R-A-S. I forgot how it's said out loud because he doesn't usually say it out loud, at least that I remember. Because, like I said, I'm still getting new to them. I'm still, like, going through all their stuff. But the twins themselves, like, as a pair, they're dope because if you listen to their Never freestyle on YouTube, which that is Contra's biggest thing. They performed it on Jimmy Fallon, I believe it was. They performed it on Jimmy Fallon not too long ago. That was like the beginning part of their performance, but it also is their most viewed video on YouTube, I believe, with over 4 million views. So look it up, Contra Never Freestyle. And sorry, you can tell just off the rip, like, when one of them, I don't know them enough to know when one of them or the other is talking, but when one of them started off his verse, you know, the other one kind of jumped in for a second, and, you know, they just kind of feed well off each other. I mean, the whole group does that. It's kind of crazy how dynamic they are as a group. You can tell they've, like, grown up together, and they're really cool friends, and, like, or they might be family. I mean, obviously the twins are, and they just get rap and hip-hop, but yeah, they're just crazy. They both have bars themselves, obviously, But I think it's a little bit more. Some of their bars kind of like sneak past you, because sometimes their delivery will sound kind of samey to some people, or they won't really be listening for lyricism. They're just listening to how the beat sounds over some of their voices. And sometimes they can kind of say things in a certain way that you'll be like, oh, that's kind of off flow or whatever. But it's actually not. It's kind of crazy. I don't know. They're really unique, and I really enjoy their sound and the way they spit. And they got a lot of bars that will just kind of sneak by you. So I highly suggest you kind of read what they're saying as they're singing, because you're going to miss a lot. You're going to get a lot more out of it that way if you listen to it again. And then, of course, my favorite dude out of the whole group, this dude is like what makes Coast Contra crazy. Like, if Rio and the Twins were just Coast Contra, I would think they're pretty dope. I would listen to them. But it's Eric Jamal. He's the dude where when you see him in the pictures, he's got like the tall braids standing up, or dreads standing up, and one kind of has like ODB hair. This dude is what makes Coast Contra like Coast Contra. Makes it so freaking legendary, because he's literally like the ODB. And if you know who ODB is, then you need to catch up on your Wu-Tang and know your hip hop history. He's like the ODB. Like I don't know, not he doesn't sound the same, but brings the energy. Like when you hear Lil Jon on a track, it's like, it's most of the time it's not even what Lil Jon is saying. It's just like how he's like, what? Yeah, he's like going crazy and saying all these things. Eric Jamal gets on and has this like old, like 90s old school rap group, like when it was in its prime, flow and delivery. And I mean, like, they all feel like they're from the 90s, but it's weird because it doesn't feel outdated and corny. It comes off as like retro and brought back, but still full of flavor and not like a cheap cop out. It's just like you can tell they grew up and really studied these things, and they're just so freaking good. And so especially if you're a fan of 90s rap and hip hop, especially like groups, this, like, they would be eating like crazy in the 90s. I'm telling you, they're going to be eating now, cuz they're just really starting to take off, but they're really going to be going places. Sorry. Anyway, yeah. So Eric Jamal, amazing. Like, I'm telling you guys, the Never Freestyle, he's the fourth person to come on. He just brings something so crazy to the whole like cipher, like he's just on another level, man. I highly recommend you watch that. And just, it's how he's saying it, but he also is storytelling in that Never Freestyle, and he's like so many like little bars here and there, but it's like a whole performance, and I love it so much. I freaking love the way Eric Jamal approaches rap, because it's so like nobody does that, like nobody does that anymore. Nobody sounds like Eric Jamal currently. Like, you could say, oh, he sounds like people from the 90s, but like, no, like he would be one of those people that we would be talking about when we are discussing 90s groups. Like, we would be putting him in those like legends conversations. And then also, so I mean, putting the music stuff to the side, I was checking out their Instagram pages and also their like Coast Contra Instagram page, and they're just a bunch of smart dudes who are doing it for all the right reasons. They just want to leave behind a legacy and make good music, and they were like helping challenge their fans to like do something, like set a goal for a week, and they were all discussing their goals. Like, one of them was like, yeah, like Rio was like, I'm cooking up a beat, and he played something. He's like, I want one of y'all to just make a beat, cook something up, no matter what beat making service you have, just make a beat. And then the others were like reading or something like that. They're like, yeah, I've been reading this book about that. Like, their minds are sharp, and they're like educated people, but they're still like, they don't seem like they're disconnected from rap and black culture and hip hop. Like, I cannot stress enough how good this group is, and this is early in their career. I highly recommend you jump on the bandwagon and really appreciate what we're getting, because what we are getting from them and what I believe we're going to continue to get is going to be amazing, historical, groundbreaking stuff, and you're definitely going to want to be there for that journey. So 10 years from now, when I'm talking about it on a podcast, and I'm like, look back at my old podcast, I was talking about these dudes way back then, you're going to want to be there and remember it as well. So go ahead and check out Coast Contra. I love those dudes. I even DM'd Eric Jamal, just telling him like how much I mess with the music, and I also asked him for if I could interview him. I know it's like a long shot. Like, there's no way somebody of that magnitude is going to be like, yeah, I'm going to tell this random, like, dude with a small itty-bitty YouTube channel for an interview. But you never know. you never know. So you miss 100% of the shots you shoot. I'm shooting. If I can get an interview with him and he's okay with that, I will for surely record it and upload it to you guys, because holy freaking crap. That would be like mind-blowing, insane stuff right there. So anyway, check out Coast Contra. I just had to give them 10 minutes of praise and giving them their flowers. So moving on, I also wanted to talk about some advice and some ways of thinking and kind of living that I've been feeling lately, that I've been really applying to my life. Stuff that I've learned and also talked about in previous podcast episode. And if you know me personally, I usually preach this kind of stuff. But I kind of broke it down into two sections I wanted to speak about separately. The first one is keeping your head down and working through the really tough times, knowing that the reward for it is greater than the struggle you're going through. So there's going to be plenty of times in all of our lives when it seems like we're going through all this stuff, like all these stressful things and all these responsibilities and whatnot are just piling up, and we're just not going to be able to make it through. But I promise you, every time you have a challenge that crazy or all these things coming in, you can make it through all of them, and the reward is always worth it. So I'll give you guys an example of the biggest standout example for me personally was when I was working at Big Five and I got tired of working there. I got told about the overnight night crew job at a grocery store around called Lucky's. Sorry. So I went to go work at Lucky's. So got a better opportunity to work overnight. And it was crazy because it was such a blessing. It happened literally the day that lockdown first started. The first day that it was like, a government like appointed thing. Like, okay, lockdown. Like everybody has to stay inside. COVID's going crazy. That day, the lockdown happened. And then that night was my very first night. So right when COVID was like at its peak and it was like, going crazy, and we didn't really fully understand what was going on, and we didn't even take it as seriously because there's no way something like this would happen in our lifetimes. I started working a job where I'm not around people, not in the public. My job's in very high demand because people are buying out grocery stores, so they needed workers. So it was all these things that came together and culminated to, I feel very blessed to have had that, like all those pieces fall together, So working there, obviously there's like what we call a night crew lead, and then there's like his assistant usually, and then there's the rest of the team. So my night crew lead was a really cool guy. I learned a lot from him. Unfortunately, he fell into I guess kind of like a hole of, he got back into his alcoholism and, was just going through a dark time. I think some family passed and whatnot, and that kind of sent him off the end and made him kind of lose himself again. So he was able to stay working there, but he didn't show up to work for like a year. But he didn't lose his job because it was for, we were a store that was covered by union and whatnot, so they weren't going to let him go because he's going through stuff as a person, which I agree with. But the thing is the night crew needed a lead, and we didn't have a lead. So I started kind of like unofficially training to be the lead. I started learning, how to do certain things that leads need to do on the night crew, but also I've been a manager at like Foot Locker and Champs and whatnot. So like I have management experience. Now, as a manager there, was I as good? Not really. I wasn't the best manager at either of those jobs, but I think in both times I didn't really have the best management above me either, and that kind of set the tone and so on and so forth. I'm not even going to get into that, but I'll take full accountability and responsibility for everything I didn't do as a manager there. So moving on, working at Lucky's, I'm like unofficially leading the team, and I'm doing all this stuff, and we're super short-handed. We're in the middle of a pandemic, and there's all this stuff going on, and I am being the lead, but I'm not getting paid as the lead. And that was like the biggest, most irritating thing, because if we didn't finish something or whatever, they would come at me like as the lead, like you and your team got to be better. And I'm like, okay, I get that, I agree, but like, bro, I'm not even getting paid to do this crap. Like, what are you talking about? I'm literally not getting paid to do any of this crap. So, I'm stepping up to try to help the crew, but I really don't need you like yelling at me and like giving me all this attitude when like, bro, I'm not even getting paid for this. Like, leads make a good amount of money. So at the time, minimum wage was $15, and I was getting paid $16 an hour to work on the night crew. and leads get paid a sizable amount more than that. Now, I'm not saying something crazy like $50. Now, it's not something crazy like that, but they get paid way more than 16 where I live. I live in California, so I know other places you're like, what? Minimum here is like 9. You were getting paid 16. You're complaining? Like, it's way different in California. So, trust me, 16 is not a crazy amount for where I live. And then, so I'm like learning all these things and I'm not getting paid and I'm getting yelled at and I'm going through all these stressful days. I remember one day I even like broke down a little bit. I was like driving home and I was so freaking frustrated. You know, you get so mad and frustrated, you like tear up. Like you're not crying or like bawling your eyes out, but you're just heated and the tears are just falling because you're just so upset. Like your body doesn't even know what to do. So it's just like, I think we're sad, but we're mad. So here's a tear. You know, you're just like, what? So I got to that point one day, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna leave here. I'm gonna bring my friend that I met at that job, who's a super cool guy. I'm still working with him to this day. I was like, I'm gonna bring him with me. We're gonna go work at a different grocery store. I'm tired of being here. We ended up applying at this other store. We got the job and whatnot, and that on itself was a bit of a mission because they had like a help wanted sign posted in like the check stand areas. And when I called them and asked if they're hiring, it was some like 17-year-old courtesy clerk or somebody who was like doing bags or whatever that answered the phone and was like, no, we're not hiring, because they don't actually know that they were hiring for the night crew. But they kept telling me, no, we're not hiring. And I was like, there's no way you guys are not hiring. There's just no way. So I just kept calling. And I even showed up and was like, you guys hiring? So I finally got it. Oh yeah, we've been hiring. And I was like, yeah, exactly. I knew it. So I go over there. I interview to be on the night crew. Just on a base level, just going from a regular night crew member to a regular night crew member at the other store where I work now. I work at Rayleigh's. That off top, I was getting paid more than at Lucky. And I was like, okay, cool. So I'm getting more money to do the same job. I mean, obviously there's a higher demand there, but that's fine. But they were also like, we also need a lead spot. Based off your first interview, would you like to, interview for a lead spot? And I was like, heck yeah, I want to be a lead. Because I was telling them, like, I was basically doing that anyway. So then I applied for the lead spot and got it. And then, because I went through all those trials and, all that struggle and had to learn all those lessons, all those really tough, stressful mentally and physically days, like, all this crap I went through, I was able to use all that experience and go and get a job as a lead and a different, better store with way better management and a better opportunity. But I had to go through all that crap to prepare myself for this. So then when I went over to Rayleigh's, they were stupid understaffed. And, it took me, like, I have an amazing crew right now, but it took me over a year to get this crew. Like, I've been through a lot there in just my first year alone. So, but I wouldn't have been as prepared if I had not gone through what I'd gone through with Lucky. So what I'm trying to tell you at the end of the story is, it seems so insurmountable and so tough, and life sucks, and it's just so freaking hard to do all this stuff. But, you just gotta put your head down, get your focus on. You just gotta get through it, because the reward is so much better and you come out a better person in general. I know people say that a lot, but I just wanted to talk about a personal experience I had myself, and then also piggybacking off that into the next section I wanted to talk about. I also wanted to speak on, if you're in a good mood or you're feeling like, you have a good vibe going on, you've been super happy. I've been really happy the past couple weeks. I spent a lot more time with, I spent some more time with my family, with like my girl and some of my friends, and just like, with YouTube, I was having fun. If you guys saw my last video where I was playing zombies and I killed George Romero on Black Ops 1, if you saw the outro to that video, you'll see that was a very emotional outro for me to make, because it was kind of giving you guys an update on how I've been the past like 4 months previous to making that video. And obviously I put something very personal in there, so if you haven't seen it, go at least watch the outro or whatever. I'm not going to spoil it here, but sorry, I don't know why I've been kind of congested. Anyway, it was like a turning point. It was like a relief point. And then I've been in such a good mood since I dropped that video that I was looking around, like I was scrolling through Instagram, and I was just happy. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna DM random people and just tell them like happy stuff, or like tell them how much I appreciate them or whatnot. So I like DM'd a couple friends like, hey, checking in on you. How are you? and also lets people know how much I love them and I appreciate them. And then I even DM somebody who I don't know at all, but is a friend of one of my other friends. So she's a friend of my other friend. And I sent her this long message where I was like, I really appreciate what you do for her, because I know you guys have been through a lot. You guys post each other all the time, and like just off of what you guys are comfortable with posting, I can tell you guys have been through a lot. But I really appreciate what you do as a friend to her, and especially everything you go through. You're a very strong person. I really appreciate you for everything. I just had to let you know, because sometimes people just need to hear, how much they mean to you or how great they are in general, because a lot of times it can get lost in the mix of everything life has. So I did that for like a whole day, and all the responses were like, or a lot of people saying like, oh, I really needed that, thank you so much, da da da. And I'm not saying like you should do that so you can get praise yourself and you can seem like a great person. I wasn't doing it so I could be like, look at me, I'm high and mighty, you should all praise and thank me because I'm nice. But it's just the amount of time it took me to type that DM was probably like 2 minutes, and that made somebody's day. And maybe that'll stick with somebody. Like, you never know when you send somebody that message, you never know what they're going through and if they really needed to hear that right then in that moment. People can be going through the most tough times, and all they need is a simple message from somebody. Just not telling them that you love them, but telling them why you love them. Like, that's the difference. Like, I can DM all my friends and let them know, you're my homie. And be like, obviously, duh. I mean, they'll probably say thank you, you too, da da da. But if I tell somebody, yo, man, you are, like, you mean so much to me, like, we've been through so much, and you've taught me so much, and, da 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 da, like, all this, like, basically detailing what they mean to you, that'll go farther than just telling them that you love them. So, I'm just saying, at the end of the day, just go ahead and, I don't know, if you're feeling good, or even if you're not feeling good, be okay with reaching out to your friends, letting them know, hey, I kind of need to pick me up right now. Can we hang out? I just, need to get some stuff off my chest. But if you're in a good headspace as well, share that with somebody. Share that with as many people as you can. Just spread that positivity and those good vibes and whatnot all around. And don't send somebody negative energy on purpose or whatever. Like, I'll keep it a buck. There are some things that even people I love do that is either annoying or it's irritating or it's like, okay, whatever, There's some things that certain people I love do that I'm just, like, that just bug me. Or you can even be like the smallest pet peeve. But I don't go and tell them, like, stop doing this because it's so annoying. I just don't say anything because I love them. I don't have to love every part about them. Sometimes they do stuff that irritates me, and I don't know. I don't go out of my way to tell them, yeah, what you're doing is stupid and it's dumb. Because now I'm going to crush their energy or whatever they're feeling at the time. And I don't want that. But, I'm not going to be fake and be like, yeah, I love that so much. I love it when you do that. I love it so, it's so great. It does, like, and then be lying. Like, I'm not trying to be fake. So, I don't know. If you got good vibes going around in the air, spread them to your homies. Because everybody needs a little bit of love sometimes. And some people need to hear when they're, why they're so great, because a lot of people forget. So, moving on. I wanted to talk about this whole Roe versus Wade thing. So this is the part of the podcast where we're going to get way more serious and way more into it. I don't really want to have people going into this thinking it's going to be a lot of jokes and a lot of fun and whatnot. This is a very serious topic. So, I'm going to say off top, there's going to be stronger language. I'm not saying I'm not going to curse and start swearing, but I'm going to be using words that relate to what we're talking about here. So it'll be, I guess, explicit adult language, but it's not going to be like me coming on here and cursing and whatnot. You'll kind of understand. I'm just warning everybody, if you're listening to this out without headphones, or maybe you're watching this on your TV or whatever, with people who, like, younger siblings who aren't ready to be hearing those words and whatnot, then make sure you're listening to this on your own time or whatever, because this is, I'm not going to try to censor myself when I'm speaking on this, because this is a very serious thing. So, with that in mind, giving you guys the whole warning ahead of time, now let's get into this. So, obviously, the Roe versus Wade decision was, I believe it's overturned, which means abortions across the board are banned. And I believe that's in the See, I believe that's for all the states. I don't think there's states that allow you to or whatever. At least from what I've seen. So I guess I'll also preface this by saying I have not done a lot of research into what everything this decision entails. So I'm just going to speak on what I know and what I've seen. So this whole Roe vs. Wade decision, I'm going to say off top, I have never seen, like, out of all the women that I follow on Instagram from, that I used to go to school with or I used to know growing up, like all my people that I consider my friends, like all my female friends, I have never seen them all agree so strongly and feel the same way and feel so disrespected, so like they just completely lost rights to their own body, and be so hurt and frustrated at the same time. Like, usually when something happens, there's somewhat of a mixed bag of reactions and feelings. Like, some person supports what happened, some person's against it, some person thinks this is the main problem, some person thinks this is the main problem. But it was just across the board, everybody felt the same way. And I thought that was really interesting and really showed how serious this is, because at the end of the day, women have had a right to their own bodies completely stripped away. And we could get into a long conversation. I've had conversations with some of my female friends about this whole thing and just how they felt growing up as a woman in general. And a lot of them, there is a lot of times where they feel like they don't have rights or are treated as equally or the same in a lot of different scenarios and by certain laws and stuff like that. But this was the most recent and big one that like really hit everybody. So that I thought that was really interesting, and that really sparked my interest. And going into hearing about everybody's stance on the decision itself, and especially on abortions, like, there's like the pro-life arguments and whatnot, people saying, well, like, I'm only against abortions because I'm standing up for babies and all we're doing is killing babies and whatnot. And I'm going to get into each counter argument in a second, but because I hear a lot of the other side, or I hear a lot of both sides. I hear a lot of people who are against this whole Roe versus Wade decision, people who, like the women who really feel like and are dealing with a right to their own body being taken, and then also people who are for it, like, yeah, we should have banned abortions, because I follow certain people who are on the other side because I like hearing the other side of an argument or of an opinion. I like hearing what someone else says. The person that I follow that I usually disagree with is Ben Shapiro. I agree with some stuff he says. I would say probably about half the stuff he says I agree, or find things that he talks about that I agree with. Maybe it's not even his whole point of view, but it's certain parts of it. But there's a lot of stuff that I don't agree on that he says and that he stands on. But I like that. Like, if we're talking about sports, I like hearing Skip Bayless talk about how much he doesn't think Steph Curry is a top 10 player and all that, because I like hearing the other side to form a full opinion on how I feel, because I don't just want to hear people who automatically feel the same way I do and then all they're doing is justifying and giving me other talking points for when I'm, talking or arguing or debating with somebody about something. So, I think it's fine. Also, by the way, anybody who is feeling like this, to also hear the other side of somebody who maybe have an opposing view, because that can also help strengthen your view and really make you search the answers yourself, but also be open to possibly being persuaded or having your, I'm not persuaded as in like they're kind of pulling your hand, but having your mind change. It's completely okay to have that as well. So, if somebody automatically disagrees with you, don't just shut them down and make them feel like they're dumb, but, you could also listen to them. But I guess when it comes to this, it's probably really hard for a lot of people to do that. Anyway, so I am against the decision to ban abortions. Now, I would say probably 4 months ago, this same topic came up, and I even posted about it on my story a little while ago, was people were talking about abortions. And going into it, I wasn't as knowledgeable as a whole about abortions and like the whole list that this whole decision impacted and all the situations it impacts. I was just speaking on unwanted pregnancies, meaning two people had sex, didn't use protection or didn't do it in the safe way, and the woman got pregnant, and because of their decision making, not choosing not to be protected, knowing the risks, and are now getting an abortion. I was against that because, it's kind of like if you knew what could happen and you still decide to take that risk and then you get pregnant. I was like, but how could you're not going to convince me that, you should just get an abortion because, you messed up. But then obviously taking a step back, I had to think about it from way more perspectives and also had to kind of see it from, I talked to like my girlfriend about it and whatnot. And everybody really opened my eyes a lot more to everything it entails. But it's not just that. Like, obviously, a huge no-no is, and like another huge reason that unwanted pregnancies happens is there's a lot of women who get raped and are impregnated from that. And it doesn't even have to be what people traditionally think is rape regarding, it's a woman walking down a street alone and a man grabs her and maybe drugs her or kidnaps her and then forcibly has sex with her and impregnates her. It's not always that, like it could literally be something like persuasion over time and making them think that that's what they want, but all you've been doing is, planting all these seeds in their mind and hoping that it grows into them saying yes, or asking so many times and they're saying no until they give a slight yes and you just take that and run with it. Like there's so many it's like rape is not just a one way, or like it's not just black and white. It's not just one thing. It's so many other different forms of it, and that can all lead to unwanted pregnancy and whatnot. And obviously one of the big arguments that people are talking about is coming from a religious standpoint and saying like, abortions are basically like saying the baby that God gave you, he made, like, God messed up and shouldn't have given you that, or he's not right or whatever. And so you're basically saying God's wrong, which to a certain extent, like, I'm a Christian man, so I get where they're coming from. But the thing is, and the example I use is like, if a woman was raped and came into church like, yeah, I was raped, now I'm pregnant, would you still be telling her that? Like, I know that God sometimes, or a lot of times, either allows something to happen to you or even makes something happen to you. Not like rape, but I'm talking about like, God, what I was talking about earlier with the whole grocery store story I was talking about. Sometimes he'll allow you to go through struggles so you can come out the other way better. Like he'll put challenges and obstacles in front of you that leads you on the path he has for you. Now, sorry, I have like something in my like throat or something. I don't feel like, and in no way does it make sense for the God I know and the God that everybody else is using when they're talking about this whole situation. I don't believe in any way that God would allow or cause you to be raped so you could enjoy the miracle of childbirth and being a parent. Like, there's no freaking way that something that evil, dark, and twisted would happen. Like, premarital sex is a sin. God would not cause premarital sex to happen to you if it, like none of that makes any sense to me. So, that whole religious argument doesn't work for me at all. It doesn't have any fruit, or it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't convince me. It doesn't make sense to me at all. I don't get that. And then there's the people who are saying, well, it's the babies, you're just killing babies and whatnot. That's all you're doing. Well, if the whole argument is we're protecting unborn babies and whatnot, I don't think the way we prevent an unwanted pregnancy just from bad decision making or what have you, I don't think the solution is banning abortions. Now, let's just take a step back for a second. Let's just think about what goes into deciding to get an abortion. First of all, women, just on a physical level, have to deal with so much more with a pregnancy. It's not like pregnancy is you get a package delivered by UPS and you wait for it to open. It's not like a Pokemon egg where you just walk around enough steps and then it'll crack open. Like, their women's bodies literally change and are growing a human being inside of them. And they go through all these things. The decision to get an abortion is not an easy decision. It's not an easy procedure. It's not something that is glorified, or not something that is like the first option people go to when they get pregnant or they think of. It's not an easy thing to do. Now, I don't know anybody personally, or maybe I do and they just aren't comfortable speaking it, which just goes to prove my point even more. I don't know anybody who, like, that's such an easy decision to make. If a woman gets to a point where they decide they need an abortion, they have probably gone through so much thinking, and it's going to cause so much pain and trauma and all this other stuff before, during, and after the abortion itself, that it's a real life changer, Like, you really got to put yourselves in the woman's shoes and really think about everything it takes for them to get to that point. No woman, I'm not, when I say, like, no woman and whatnot, I just don't think that I'm saying every woman is the same with this way of thinking or whatever. Obviously, everybody's different. So I'll just say most women do not want to get an abortion because, A, they don't want to get pregnant in the first place, because if they got an abortion, they're not ready to be a parent, or maybe they just don't want kids. That's their decision. That's their right. So when something like that happens to them, an abortion seems like the easy solution to a man looking at it. Like, oh, well, wouldn't you just get an abortion? Like, what? Isn't that easy? Why? Well, but why would you want that? It's not something that's just that easy. Because even, like, the trauma and the thing that's floating in the back of their head after they get an abortion, that's stuck with them. That's not something you're going to forget and be like, oh, yeah, I sure did have that happen to me. I sure did get an abortion. Like it's almost like we're talking about it like it's not as serious as it is. So off top, that's crazy that people think it's just, like, such an easy decision. But my suggested solution, and this isn't a solution over the whole problem. This is just something. This was just me brainstorming a way that I and other men, first, because there's multiple parts to my whole solution, my whole thought process behind this, is as a man in a relationship with my partner, and I'll use our relationship and the examples from it, I have no say in what my partner does in regards to birth control and what they do, with when it comes to sex, or, like I said, birth control or pregnancies or whatever they do. So my partner and I, we do have those, I guess, needs or desires, whatever you want to call them, and we do engage in sexual activities with each other. So, going into that, just off top, this is a huge part of it. Her and I are always on the same page when it comes to birth control and how we go about that. We've done a form of birth control, which we did the IUD, where you get the arm implant. And by the way, I don't think this should be uncomfortable for anybody to talk about. I'm pretty sure she's comfortable with me speaking on this, because it's not like it's something like, oh my God, you got that? What? Like, she got the IUD because we've decided that would be the best thing to prevent pregnancy. But see, the thing is I didn't tell her, you're getting an IUD, you're getting that thing in your arm, and you're going to keep it in there because I don't want kids. I'm not enforcing her to do that. We talked about, or I brought up, and then we discussed, how are we going to go about, like, birth control and whatnot. And we both decided that that's what she wanted to do. Now, when I say we both decided, it's mainly her. It's mainly her saying, I'm comfortable doing this. This would be the easiest way and the most effective way to prevent pregnancy. So I'm okay with this. My job after that was to provide transportation for her to get there, making sure she's comfortable and, knows fully what she's getting herself into. Because birth control for women versus men is completely different. Men can get vasectomies, but that's risky. That's really risky. Or maybe it's not risky because, I don't know the risk. Like, you have a 70% chance to never, I had a friend in the medical field who was saying to me that men could get reversible ones, but even that I would even want to attempt because just running the risk of doing that. So a woman's birth control is literally altering her body, the way her body naturally functions. Mine is wearing a condom, which is $10 at Walgreens, and something that's just like, that's as hard to do as putting on a sweater when it rains and taking it off when it's not raining. While my partner has to have something inserted into their body, and it changes the way their body naturally functions. Mine is still the same. I still have the same feelings. I still think the same way. I still am able to do all the things physically. It's just like putting on a red dot on a gun. It doesn't change the gun's damage. It just makes it work better. And then I can just take it right off. So, that off top, the birth control is different, but it's always her decision. So she was on the IUD for a while, but then it started changing the way she was feeling and changing certain things, and she wanted it taken out. So I was like, okay, well then let's go get it taken out. Because it's not like, no, don't take it out, but it works so well. And and it makes it so much easier. We don't have to worry about it. That's not my decision. It's her body. It's in her body. So when she brought up, I think I want to take it out, are you okay with that? I was like, we will do whatever you want. Whether that's if you want to take that out and you would like to switch to the pill, or if you would, then we'll just start using condoms or all this different stuff. Like, there's all these other solutions, but at the end of the day, it's your choice. Because yes, it's both of us, like we're both partners and, pregnancy comes from both of us. But I am going to cater to what you need me to. Because like I said, for me, it's easy. I even brought up, would you want me to get a vasectomy? I'm very much not trying to get one, but if it was, I'd be open to having a discussion about it. But off top, she was like, no, I do not want you to risk that. Do not get that. And I was like, okay, I'm glad we're on the same page because I didn't want to get it, but I would have been open to a discussion about it, and I would have had to find out way much more information and gone through all this thinking and whatnot. I wouldn't have just automatically wrote it off because it's something my partner is talking about. So she was like, I don't want to be on any type of birth control. I was like, okay, condoms it is. Easy as that. And that's what we do. So just that decision, it's that easy. Men who are forcing their partner to take birth control, that is a problem. And that is wrong. Because that is taking away her right. And you can say, well, I didn't hold a gun to her head, or I didn't threaten her. You could be like mentally persuading her or whatever to make her eventually cave in and do it. Even though in the back of her mind she doesn't want to do that. Guys, like, man to man real quick. This is not, like, when it comes to that, that's not our thing. If you guys disagree so much where you're like, I need you to be on birth control, and she's like, I really don't want to be on it, then you need to think about, maybe that's just not your partner. Maybe you guys aren't meant to be together yet, or maybe not ever, or, that could be something, that's just how it is. If you want a woman who's on birth control, then be comfortable finding yourself a woman. But also, no, you and your partner are always going to be on the same page. So, it's okay to have some sacrifices, even though men aren't, like, we aren't really sacrificing anything when it comes to that. But whatever. So there's that. I also think that we, as older siblings, parents, friends, need to make, like, those conversations about sex and how to have it safely and whatnot. We need to make those comfortable. And we need to stop making sex so taboo, and when people start having those feelings, because it's so natural. to have those feelings and wants to have sex, because as species, as human beings, we're mentally wired and like genetically wired to want to continue our species. And how do we do that? By mating with the opposite sex to create a child, to create life that will continue our species. It's completely natural. It's what we are, it's who we are, it's what we do. So making somebody feel like, oh, those are evil thoughts, or those are terrible thoughts, don't even bring that up, or I don't want to hear about that, you shouldn't feel like that. That is just not how you want, somebody who's starting to have those feelings to feel. You don't want them to feel like that. Me growing up, when I started having those feelings, my mother made it so freaking easy to just ask her a question about it. I never felt judged. I never felt like I was being lied to. I never felt like I was gross or something was wrong with me. She told me, like, yeah, you're going to start having those feelings, and it's completely natural. So if you have any questions about anything, let me know. So then I was like, okay, well, this and that and this and that. Obviously, I had a sex ed class, but there are a lot of parents out there who don't want their kids to go to that, or kids usually use it as a way to just kind of have fun, because they'll pull out like a fake penis and they'll be like, oh look, they're the fake one, will be dumb, and won't actually retain any of the very important information in that class. So not only am I retaining information from the sex ed class, but every time I have a question, I can just ask it. And I'm comfortable asking it. And I'm comfortable feeling the way I feel. And I can go about it however I need to. So when my partner and I first got to that stage in our relationship where we were ready to have that, I knew everything I needed to know to make sure I was being safe and smart when we started having those experiences together. So I made sure I was protected. Have that. I knew how to check I knew to check if a condom's expired. I knew how to check if there was a hole in the package, because obviously a hole in the package can dry out and it can break. I knew how to put it on the right way. I knew how to dispose of it properly. I knew everything I needed to know. I knew the risk of STDs or pregnancies, or I knew the risk of this. I knew these forms of birth control. I know all these different things. So my partner and I have been together we're approaching 8 years soon. We still don't have a kid. We're gonna, trust me, we're gonna want kids. I can't wait to be a freaking dad, but we're not ready for it now. We've been able to engage in those activities safely without having these unwanted pregnancies. And all of that started from my mom making sure I was comfortable with asking and feeling like that, and making sure I was safe and prepared. So if and when I have those thoughts, I'm able to do them safely, because I'm sure a lot of you guys maybe watching this is how you started, having, sex and whatnot, is you've had those feelings. And if you're one of the people who your parents were like, no, don't do that, it's bad, it's terrible, you're not going around that boy's house, you're not doing any of that, none of that, you're still going to find a way to do it. The moment your child, or the moment your younger sibling or whatever comes up to you and says that they're starting to feel that first reaction they get is going to determine how they're going to go about it. Because if they're like, yeah, I really, like, let's just use the example, like, let's say you're an older brother and you have a younger sister, and she comes up to you like, yeah, I'm starting to have those feelings. Which, first of all, if you have a younger sibling that's coming up to you about stuff like that, you should be very happy that they feel that comfortable to have those conversations, because that's usually pretty uncomfortable for a lot of people. If you tell her, ew, you're my little sister, you shouldn't be having that, oh, God, why are you feeling like that? Don't do that, Okay, great. So now when I have questions or when I'm going through stuff, I'm not going to my brother about it, because he's going to get all mad. And then the dad is obviously way more protective of the daughter. Oh, can't go to dad. And maybe they can go to their mom. And if they can't go to their mom, can't go to her either. So then they're going to go to their friends. Or they're just going to find a way to engage in those activities anyway, because it's human nature. We find a way to still do it. If you want it that bad, you're going to find a way. And most of the time, when you have to be sneaky, and you have to have like a sneaky link, and you got to lie to your parents and lie to all these people just so you can meet up with somebody, you're usually not prepared to be safe and smart about it. Let's keep it a buck. If you're sneaking off to go do that, you're usually not like, oh yeah, I know exactly what we're doing. You're usually, okay, let's just do it quick because, we can actually do it now. And that's when the mistakes happen, and that's when the unwanted pregnancies happen and all that. And then that's when that poor girl who was just having a natural feeling, just like a organically natural feeling and want, and she wanted to engage in those activities, but because nobody made her feel like it was okay or made sure she was ready for it, now she has to go through the part, and you're like, see, I told you, and you still did it. You're a terrible person. And now they feel even worse, and then they have to go through the decision of, okay, well, do I have an abortion or do I become an 18-year-old mother who isn't ready for that? And now I feel like the rights to my life and my body and whatnot have basically been either taken from me or been altered from someone else's decision. I don't want that to happen. Like, make it a comfortable conversation. I'm the oldest sibling. I'm the oldest brother. I have a younger sister and two younger brothers. Now, granted, that if they ever had a question about something like that, they could always come to me regardless. They could always ask me anything or tell me anything in the world, and I would not judge them. I would not bring it up with everybody else. I wouldn't be like, guys, guess what they just asked me? It would be between me and them, and I would give them as much advice and guidance as I can, but making sure they're prepared. And when I'm a dad, when I become a father, when my kids start getting into that, regardless if I have sons or daughters, it doesn't matter. I'm going to make sure they're prepared because I completely understand that that's a natural thing. I get it. So I'm going to make sure they're prepared so that they can have those activities safely, legally, and correctly, morally. And they're prepared to go out and do those things so that they don't end up like, my daughter doesn't show up and she's like, Dad, I'm sorry to tell you, but I'm pregnant. And I'm like, I didn't even know you were into that stuff. Like, at least I could be like, okay, sweetie, like, you're going to be starting to get into those feelings. I'm just letting you know, these are the risks. This is how you, do this. If you're going to, sleep with a guy, make sure you use the condoms. These ones, because sometimes, some of these boys out here, they don't be knowing what they're doing. They're going to mess up and whatnot. So, like, if you're going to do that, make sure you're safe, but I would recommend you do that with the right person. It's not a thing of making someone feel like they're disgusting or they're less of a person. That's just my way of dealing with this until the government actually gives women the right to their bodies and that choice and that decision, because it's already a hard decision. So if a woman has to make that decision and that's where they go with, who are we to tell them not to do that? That's crazy. So that's just how I feel. And I mean, plus, if we're really talking about it, if we're going to be like, oh yeah, women can't get abortions, just, don't get unwanted pregnancies. Well then, what if the roles were flipped? What if it was a panel of, like, mostly women who decided men need vasectomies until they get married, because then they can have kids, because they're not ready till then. We don't want any, babies to be coming out of the men into women, and then, then they have to raise them off barely any money, and they're malnutritioned, and now they're going through a lot of mental and physical abuse because their parents weren't ready as people yet. We don't want that to happen, so men are required to have vasectomies. Well, how would we as men feel? Like, hey, that's fair, we're saving kids' lives. You got us there. Yeah, no. It's not like that at all. Not even close. The narrative would be so different, and we would be outraged as men. We would be going crazy. So, the same way a woman can't make me get a vasectomy, I can't make a woman have a child. Regardless how you feel. It's their body. And I know you're saying, like, oh, but they're still the kid. They're still the kid and whatnot. We should have prevented that from happening in the first place. But things happen. Things happen. No matter what, every time you have sex with somebody, it's not 100% that you're not going to get pregnant, no matter what form of protection you use or birth control. So when it comes to that, and I'm willing to bet, a lot of people who get, like, a surprise pregnancy, a lot of people usually end up having the child and are just forced to go through so many challenges and whatnot, but still make it work. So obviously, shout out to all those mothers who do, but shout out, like, if you don't feel ready for that and you're really not, it's okay. Because would I rather have a woman get an abortion because she's just not ready and whatnot, or would I rather her have a child, that could kill the mom or whatever, and then the child be raised not the right way and go through all these different things, and you'd be like, oh, well, if the parents aren't good, foster care, duh. It's not, foster care is not what you saw in Despicable Me, where it's just a happy little house for girls and they just get adopted and they're all happy and they're, everything's great. That's a dream scenario for a lot of people. So I would rather just not have the pregnancy have happened at all. But if it happens and the woman is not ready for that, it's her body. It's her choice. The same way if it was a man's body and if it was like, it should be his choice. If he was like, yeah, I don't want to be able to get women pregnant, then you can get yourself a vasectomy. Or I would like to get women pregnant, but if you're getting unwilling women pregnant, then that's just morally wrong and you need to really, really do some self-evaluation. So I don't know. Let me know how all of you feel about it. I would probably recommend you let me know your thoughts and opinions through DMs on my Instagram. That's linked below. Probably just DM me your thoughts, because I don't want somebody to come to this video and they see your comment unless you're comfortable with putting your opinion out there. And because, it's the internet, so people can come in and then they can really attack you, which they shouldn't, but it's the internet. They can attack you and really make you feel like you're dumb or whatever just for you having an opinion on something. So I love having conversations about topics like these. So that's why I'm recommending you DM me about your thoughts and opinions on it, and then we could talk about it. And if you agree, what you disagree on, you don't have to agree with everything I said. You don't have to disagree with everything I said. It doesn't matter. I don't think you're dumb because you don't have the same view as me. I don't care. We can talk about it. But I'm only saying DM me because I don't want somebody to attack you for the way you think and the opinions you have. And I'm not going to go around like, look at what this person said. Isn't that crazy? Like, now it's time to do the next podcast where we show off all the people who disagreed with me. Like, I don't want you to get attacked. So, just DM me about it. But other than that, it's been another episode of the podcast. My heart and, my soul is sending a lot of love to all women who are really feeling the effects of this and are feeling extremely upset and have felt super disrespected and like their rights and their voice doesn't matter. Like, to all of you who are going through that, I love you so much. I hope we're able to get to a point as a country where you feel like your life is completely your life and all your decisions and your rights are for you. I hope we get there. But, given this country's history, are we even surprised that it's going to take them as long as it is to get on board with the right way of thinking? But whatever, it is what it is. So, if there's any way I can help, to anybody who knows me and you're going through it, if there's something I can do, let me know. I'm more than happy to help. But all I can do is just speak my mind now, and hopefully I've prepared at least some other man out there who never thought about it that way to maybe consider their own responsibility and their own role in this whole situation. Yeah. So, it's been nothing but love, everybody. See you guys in the next one. Blah.